really setting time to think about the blueprints and architecture for your own goals and your own life here is so important because if you don't have this clarity, you're just going to move, you're going to make progress. You will make progress, I'm sure, but the only resource we're not getting back here is time. Welcome to the Path to Passive podcast, where we talk about building wealth and empowering lifestyle through commercial real estate investing for tech professionals. I always wish that other tech professionals reaching financial freedom had documented their journey along the way, so I'm doing it for the rest of us. Join us as we explore stories, many failures, and lessons learned along the way. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. Have you ever had the intention of doing something and it just sort of fell off and didn't become a priority anymore? Maybe you had an idea of something that you wanted to do and you started to take a lot of action, but you weren't quite seeing results after a period of time, so you stopped doing it because it just didn't seem worth it anymore. Well, it's relatable because, these are my experiences in the past too. And while no one's perfect, including myself, I can improve and find frameworks and methods to be better at goal setting and increase probabilities for success and learn along in the process. So in this episode, what I want to talk about is a goal setting technique and tracking mechanism, which I'll get into in a moment, but we're going to be talking about goal setting techniques that Bill Gates uses, Google and others use, how it was used, how you can use it for our personal goals and for our professional goals as well. And I'll give some examples here. I'll talk about some common pitfalls around goal setting and how to avoid them. This is going to be super important because there's so many different methodologies and sometimes it can be extremely confusing. And then finally, I want to talk about how you can get started right now to draft these out as well. Draft your goals out. Why am I doing this right now? Well, it is the end of the year. And while I'm not talking about New Year's resolutions or things like that, I am talking about what we can do to increase our clarity and what we do want going into the new year. Of course, we're in the mode to think about our priorities and what we want to accomplish. It's natural with, closing out the end of the year and what we can do to actually make the actions tangible so that it's not just some dream, but something that we can actually do and achieve. So welcome to another episode of Path to Passive, Real Estate Investing for Tech Professionals, the guide for tech professionals that want to invest in real estate, get maximum leverage on their capital to earn more income, save on taxes, and build generational wealth. I, of course, am Stephen Rita, and welcome to this episode. In each episode, I'm going to be bringing you real estate topics, conversations with leaders and entrepreneurs, or myself, who can help provide the tools like today to start successfully investing and building streams of income. I, of course, am on this path as well, and I want to document my process and be a guide along the way. So today is unlocking outcomes and key results for our personal goals. So you ever make that to-do list with just too many things on it? This is when I think about when I first started. Okay, I'm going to make a whole list of things. I'm going to start, which ones seem the most important. Maybe you put a star next to them and check, do a GTD thing, like getting things done. If you've ever looked into David Allen's method, which is quite good too, I must say. And I've used it for a long time and I still use different principles of it. But we're talking about OKRs today, outcomes and key results. So what I want you to do for a moment is just imagine a roadmap, but instead of dusty highways, it's paved with your audacious goals. Think something like climbing Mount Awesome. And you have clear milestones in how you can get there, right? Like mastering that rock climbing wall as an example, or setting investing goals. And that's what OKRs are. We have really big and really juicy objectives, big things here. We want to break those down into bite-sized key results. These are the steps and those milestones along the way. So we're not just, wandering in wilderness here. We have focused direction so that we can make progress. And so let's face it, even speaking from personal experiences here, most of the time, I know that I have failed from hitting my goals and wandered around in the wilderness too much because I had lack of clarity on what the actual goal was. I had too many goals and I wasn't focused. And because of that, it was poor prioritization. There are so many things that are vying for our attention, trying to get us to do things. I mean,
I'm not even going to talk about social media here. It's just things that we need to get done. And so prioritization is really important. And I fell victim to that too, because, I'll say shiny penny syndrome in a lot of ways didn't help too, but just too many distractions. And so if we want to get focused, we want to have something like our OKRs. And so if you're a bit like me, sometimes maybe you're biting off more than you can chew. You just try to do too many things at once, and think, well, that might be a lot of things, but can it really be that bad? And while the things that you're working on might not be particularly difficult, it may just take a lot of time. That can be part of the problem itself. So I'm sad to say this topic, sometimes, I've been a little bit of a slow learner, and I have to continue to remind myself that less is more and focus is key. So what I do now is I focus on fewer things and I ask better questions so that I can get closer to my outcomes or reach them faster. Some questions like this are, who could help me to do this faster? What automation or technology could accelerate results or make this simpler? And other things like, how could I achieve this in half of the time? And again, if you're like me in the past, maybe you think that, our greatest asset, let me put it this way, my greatest asset was that I knew that I could focus and I could get a lot done. But the problem I faced was that I knew that I could get a lot done. And so instead, I started thinking, who could help me to do this? And if I paid someone to do this, or if I use technology, invested technology to help me out, which maybe is a little bit closer to home for us as tech professionals, then I can get to that result faster or have it off of my plate and just check if that's the result that I want. And I'll do a whole other episode in the future around things like buyback time and some concepts around when is the right level. When, if you're making something, calculate your hourly rate as an example, and some ideas on how much would be the right amount to spend per hour to have someone else to actually help you to do those things. Like I was talking about, to have someone else or another who to help you as an example. But anyway, what we're talking about here for goal setting methodology is OKRs, outcomes and key results. And if you haven't heard this before, OKR stands for objectives and key results, And you can think about them as a roadmap, right? So your objective is this audacious or big goal, right, that we're looking for, the North Star as an example. Then you break it down into key results. These are the measurable milestones that guide you towards your ultimate win, right? It could be things like, learning to make, become a brand new, to really, really get great as an investor. In our case, it could be things like training for a 5K. It could be developing a much better relationship. It could be all of those things. But the main thing is that it's like having a GPS for your goals, right? But way cooler because you get to pick your destination. So for investing, it could mean that you have an objective to invest in a passive deal, one deal or multiple, if that's for you, in 2024. And your key results could be meet 5 new deal sponsors, right? These are the objective here is what thing could we say has been met or not? So it has to be specific. And then the key results, in this case, it could be meet those 5 new deal sponsors, things that will help move you along to actually getting your outcome, your objective. And then as well is that analyze the 10 deals. It's going to be, well, these are the things that are sort of critical path items, if you will, which will help you along to actually getting that objective as well. So in this way, you can look at if I were to do and these different key results, would that help me to get my objective? And you should be able to scrutinize, you should be able to analyze and look at those key results, and each one should be yes. Otherwise, it shouldn't be on there. And you should aim for about 4 to 7 as well. Too many, again, it's going to be an overload of not focus. We want to then prioritize those based on which ones we think are going to be closest, most important to get us there. So why OKRs are really important and, are awesome for personal stuff as well is that these can be getting a good methodology around this helps us stay laser focused. We get to say goodbye, as an example, to scattered efforts, and just get a lot more narrowed in so that we have laser sharp clarity. So our OKRs will help us to define and what we need to achieve. And of course, we need to know some of those whys as well, but it helps us to stay laser focused. Also, what's important here is that we're measuring the right things. So seeing your progress in a black and white, a very way where we can keep tracking on the data really lets us know if we're making progress. Where did we start? How far did we get? And the motivation aspect here is that we get to see our progress over time. And that is going to be good for our confidence, right? So we know that the ticks along the way to those milestones really helps us to get, these little mini celebrations as well, continuing to fuel your motivation to keep going. And I can't stress this enough that you need to celebrate your wins. I am incredibly guilty of this in the past, and I use the word guilty very intentionally, because for me it was okay next, and fell into this the groove of, well, I don't have time to celebrate. I just need to keep going and the next thing. And that is an entirely different cycle, which is not a good place to be in. What we want to do is make the celebration appropriate to the level of tick, so that it's not disproportionate, but it is a proportionate recognition or acknowledgement. And by the way, when you do that, you're training your brain to do this way too. All right. Third, we're talking accountability, right? And so this way, because things are a bit more objective, right? We can look at it. Did we make progress or not? We have the data, so it's really tough to hide from our excuses. So OKRs will hold us to be accountable, making us, having this effort right in front of us. Did we do this or not? And that way we know we can continue to look at what needs to be done to get us to these key results, of course, to our main objective as well. And then fourth here, we've got data-driven decisions. So we get to ditch the guesswork, just like I said, and we get to take a look at all of the data we're looking at, right? We get to track the progress, analyze results, and make informed decision based off of the data that we have. And all of this continues to go through a cycle, right? Of what did we do? What did we learn? How is it getting us closer to the result? What did we do? What did we learn? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a bunch of different things here. For those of you that have background in maybe things like Deming or the plan, do, check, adjust, or study, act, or, anything that might be Lean Six Sigma, et cetera. Again, the reason why I like something like OKRs is just because what is the main thing we're trying to do and where are the key results helping us to get there. And so anyway, let's move into the next thing, which is some objective mistakes, right? So in other words, mistakes that people make when creating objectives. And the first thing here I want to mention is setting vague objectives. An objective should be clear, concise, and important, inspiring, right? If it's too low of a goal or, too low of an outcome, then it's going to be like, yeah, why do I care about doing that, right? So we want it to be something that we could be almost, if it's big enough, it's got to be like, oh man, I don't know if I can really do that, and that's where that should be. Because remember, if you get to this kind of place, then it's like, wow, I actually need to become someone different. I actually need to do things and really take action to get to these key results. And it's when you do those things, you're gonna feel you are going to feel proud because you become someone different in the process. Anyway, so setting vague objectives, we want to avoid vague terms like improve or be better. Instead, we want to aim for something concrete and measurable, like launch a successful online store, become a top performing salesperson, become an educated and intelligent investor, whatever it is. We want to set Other mistakes are setting unrealistic objectives, right? So don't set yourself up for failure with impossible goals, but they should be ambitious and they should be achievable, right? And you do want to consider things like your resources, your time frame, your potential obstacles before you're setting your sights here. And the thing is that you need to take into account those resources, time frames, and obstacles. But again, you have the opportunity here to set these objectives based on everything else that you have going on, right? And you want to make these objectives quote unquote ecological, meaning that it fits and is supported by the other areas of your life too. In other words, what you do not want to do is set this so big that you end up sacrificing so much in those other places, like family time or the might be social important time to you, or other things that you have. As an example, relationships are important is where I'm getting at, or just, maybe it's your faith or whatever else. But you need to decide for you what's going to make you happy on this. But the point is do not set unrealistic objectives, but do make them ambitious. Okay. So the other thing here is moving on to key result mistakes. And in this case, it's focusing on activities and not the outcomes. So key results should measure the impact for your actions, right? Not just the action themselves. So in this case, instead of, as an example, it'd be something like write 5 blog posts. You want to focus on increasing traffic by 20%, right? So it's not just the activity, it's focused on the outcome. So notice in this case, very brief little example, that in this case, if it's blog posts, that's the activity, right? But if it's increased web traffic, then that is an outcome. So the mistake here is focusing on the input activity versus the output outcome is the point. Another mistake here is setting too many key results. And so I talked about having a long task list way before, but again, this is just talking about at the key result level. So a long list of key results can be overwhelming, absolutely, and can be distracting from the main focus. So just like I said, aim for about 3 to 5 key results per objective and ensure that they are really measurable and actionable. The actionable point here is actually quite important because it's something that you should be able to do and you can influence, right? Another part here is ignoring leading indicators. So don't wait until the end of a cycle of measurement to assess progress. Continuously look at what you're doing. If that's a weekly thing on like a Sunday morning, that's what I do. And you can do this all in honestly like 15 to 20 minutes. So tracking these indicators will predict your future success and allow you to make those adjustments as needed. And really, if we don't know where we are, it's really tough to know where we're going. And so that's why it's so important to measure. We measure all the time in other areas we do, especially professionally. So doesn't it make sense that we do this for our own goals too? All right. And then implementation mistakes. So we talked about objectives, we talked about some key results mistakes, and here we're talking about implementation mistakes. So in this point is the lack of your own transparency, right? These should be shared, right, and discussed with those that are important to you, right? So you want to encourage that communication around these particular things. And this could be like with the important people in your life, as an example, since we are talking about this as at a personal level. Of course, same thing, communication in the workplace and so forth, but we want to make sure that our goals are transparent. Hey, this is what my objective is. And, these are the things that I'm focused on, i.e. the key results. And here's what I'm up to. This is what I'm doing. You don't have to use this exact verbiage, but you can say, this is what I'm focused on. These are the things that will help me get there, key results. And these are the what's important to me, so that you communicate that. Because otherwise, how's anyone else going to know? And the other thing too is it very well could be that others can help you get there too, because they might know someone or have some resources that can help you along. Other thing here, moving on to another one, is not tracking that progress regularly. Like I said, regular check-ins and reviews are crucial for staying on track and making adjustments. So schedule regular meetings with yourself so that you can look at what's blocking you and what you can celebrate success on. Myself personally, what I do is every 2 weeks, I do my own setting, like my own sprint as an example. I've got a number of things on there, and I go through and I ask myself the questions. What things could I get someone to help me on? What things might I be able to get technology to do for me? What things, could I achieve in half the time if I focused? And then I go and I schedule some of these things, and that's really helps me to put the time on the calendar so I can get those things done. So these are just a number of things. So make sure you're tracking progress regularly and make sure that you're transparent with what you're doing and you're really honest with yourself on these, because it's going to be really difficult if you start lying to yourself, let me put it that way. So you have to hold yourself accountable and maybe have others, important people in your life, your significant other, whoever, also say, hey, you wanted to do this thing or that thing. And that way it'll help to keep you on track. Okay. So a lot of information, but what can you do to get started right now, right? What we want to do is we want to reduce the bar for action, that barrier for entry, if you will. So these are some easy steps to get started with OKRs for your personal goals. And I've got some additional resources I'll put in the body and the show notes, so to speak. But this is how you can get started, right? And just get started. Just get started. Start small, think big, act fast, and other catchphrases. But the point is the same, is that here you want to dream big. You want to choose your focus. Where do you want to go, right? What does the vision look like? And I cannot stress this enough because I have screwed up a lot here. I thought, well, why should I take all the time to do this stuff? I can just, go and, go, take a lot of action. And I kind of have something in my head. But let me tell you, really setting time to think about the blueprints and architecture for your own goals and your own life here is so important, because if you don't have this clarity, you're just going to move, you're going to make progress. You will make progress, I'm sure, but the only resource we're not getting back here is time. Don't mean to sound morbid or anything like that, but I do want to stress, if you keep doing the same thing you're doing, if you're not doing any of these things, right, and you are in, the place where you are looking to how can you make progress more, and what you're currently doing isn't super great, then this is the question I've asked myself, is if I keep doing this thing, if I keep in this mode of operation, well, how much more can I really do this before I wake up one day or I think, well, where did the time go? And other things like that, right? I made a lot of progress, but I could have done better if I was more focused on the vision and things of that nature. So dream big, choose your focus is the point. So set big goals, get inspired by your goals, pick ones that excite you and motivate you, and really don't be afraid to dream big, because it's really only the questions that we ask ourselves are the ones that we work toward. So it's on us at the end of the day. Break it down into bite-sized pieces. So once you have your big goal, right, you're thinking about those objectives, break it down into those 3 to 5 key results that are measurable and achievable with a specific time frame. So yes, this is what things do you think you can do in a monthly part or a quarterly aspect? Probably monthly would be good, right? The months go by fast. Measure more often, right? So that you can see, am I making progress on this, right? And make sure your key results are directly related to the goal and contribute to achieving it. Also, keep it simple and keep it visual. Now, the keep it visual part is extremely important here, because we want to see, you ever see the loading bar? Of course you have. We all have seen a ton of loading bars. We know that's progress right there. And we know when it's not moving, when it's taking too long in those cases. But we know that that there is where we are to be on track. So we don't want to do things like complicated spreadsheets or software, but you can just start right away. Simple notebook, visual tool to map and track your progress. I personally use things like Asana that helps me, and things like Gantt charts as an example. If that sounds overly complicated, then just do what works for you. You can even just make simple lists to start. But keep your OKRs where you can see them daily. It can be on your desk, your phone, right next to your computer, on your background, whatever it is, but it will serve as a constant reminder and motivator as well. I promise, looking at things often is the same thing as, measuring all the time. So thing here is track your progress, celebrate wins, regularly review your OKRs, track your progress toward your key results. And, this again, look at them that weekly. I do the tasks what my focus is every 2 weeks. And then I look every Sunday. So that means I have a cadence there. So weekly, monthly, quarterly, depending on those specific things, but celebrate big and small, recognize that progress. All right. And then the fifth one, finally, this is super important, is be flexible and adapt. It doesn't have to be, oh, well, this thing happened or that thing happened, and a whole bunch of reasons why you're off track, and et cetera, et cetera. But let's face it, life happens. Plans may need to change. Don't be afraid to adjust the OKRs as needed throughout the year, especially if things are no longer important or no longer needed, right? And so just focus on that progress over perfection. Progress or perfection. That should be the mantra. What matters most is taking consistent effort and learning from that experiences, because that's just going to help you to evolve more and more and more. Again, if this all sounds like things that you've done in a professional environment, it is. You can use it there too. But this is the point. Just get some structure around our own life so we take ourselves as serious as our jobs, as I would say. Okay, so bringing us to the actions for today is that draft out some OKRs for your investing, right? This is investing podcasts, this is real estate investing. So this is why I called out, just start here. How many deals do you want to invest in? How many properties do you want to go and get? So those are the things that should be for your objectives. For the key results, what projects, what activities must be done to move you closer to meeting that objective, right? And so the why here is simple. We need to set a focus on what we want to achieve. If we don't, we will get distracted. Before you know it, you're going to feel like you actually didn't accomplish anything. So next time you're thinking about what you need to do, right, just go look at your objectives and key results so that what you need to do is clear. Also, it will be clear on what you need to say no to. And by the way, we want to make these things congruent. I talked about being ecological. If you're saying no to things that are, important to you as well, ask yourself if that needs to be an OKR, right? You do need to have OKRs around your family stuff. So that, think about that as well. And so, things like how fit do you want to be as an example? What do you have to do to get what key results you need to do there? And then how do you know that you've met those objectives? Do you want to develop better relationships with your family? What does that look like? What do you have to do to make that happen? And things like that. So bringing us to the quote of today, actually, I have two of these, and both of these come from Andy Grove. Andy was, a Hungarian-American businessman. He was an engineer and author who played a pivotal role in shaping the landscape for Silicon Valley. The reason why I have the quotes here is because he served as the third CEO from Intel from 1987 to 1998. And he was actually someone that really helped to shape, and I believe he invented the OKR framework as well. He also served on the board of places such as Apple, and advised in numerous startups as well. So the two different quotes I have today is: the most important single determinant of an organization's long-term success is how effectively it manages the future. So the quote emphasizes the power of OKRs as a future-oriented framework, helping you to set ambitious goals and track that progress over time, right? And I would argue that if we haven't done something before, especially like big investments, then that is going to be an ambitious goal too. But start with what you think, back to the things I mentioned before about what is achievable, what ambitious, and ask yourself, if I achieve this, if I do this, how will that change how I feel about this? What kind of impact will it be for me and my family, etc. Right? And this is why the future orientation is so awesome and interesting when I picked it here. The second one is people improve when they are held accountable for results, not activities. So the quote reminds you that OKR should focus on measurable outcomes and not just the busy work. So track progress towards those key results and hold yourself accountable for achieving them. So anyway, if you like these, I highly recommend reading the book Measure What Matters. And like I said, I'll make sure that I have that book and a website actually, which goes a lot into OKRs in the show notes too. So wrapping up today, on an upcoming episode, I will finally start introducing you on what you should look for when analyzing deals, though, that if you know it's a good deal and a good deal for you, right? So I'll be discussing at a high level some common return metrics, right? The parts of a deal that you'll have to analyze, what due diligence means and what actions you should take to do that due diligence, and well, expect actions from the sponsorship team as well, and what questions are on that deal that you should be asking. So if you're wanting to know if a deal could be a good one for your criteria, you will want to tune into that one. So if this helped you, please share it and let me know what you enjoyed. You can reach out to me on Instagram at @TheRealArita or email me at steven@aritacapital.com. Also, if you have topics that you would want to hear about, let me know. Just email me and I will check your feedback, check the questions, and I can create an episode just for your questions as well. So thank you for joining me on another episode of Path to Passive, and I will see you next time.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Path to Passive. We love connecting with our listeners and those on the path to architecting their wealth and improving their lives. Feel free to let us know what topics you'd like to see in future episodes. Get in touch with us through email or Instagram. See you next week for a new episode.